KG4MK. We're making a little rearrangement in here a little bit to try to get set up with a video. Oh man, what a day. We did really truly try to make a video today earlier in the rain, and it didn't work out too well. But that's okay. What we're doing today will be fine. I wanted to take, now that we're set up, again, welcome to the channel. And if you're not subscribed to my channel, be sure to do that and hit the like button and give us a comment. I've been outside loading a fireplace, and I think I got soot all over me. Probably look dirty in places I normally don't get dirty, but it'll be okay. Real quick, I've been getting a lot of questions and comments and stuff about one of my previous videos. And I wanted to cover that right now because it seems like it's a pretty hot topic, and I really wanted to get down to the meat and potatoes of it, and hopefully this video will help somebody. So with that being said, I'm just going to get right to it. Come on. Let me straighten this out because this... Anyway, what I was going to say was I had gotten the 590 and the FT101, and I got the Ameritron 1306. And with the 1306, I had everything set up. At the time, I had a off-center dipole wire antenna, and I had a R9 vertical antenna, which took me for freaking ever to get that thing tuned. And once I got it there, it was like, it worked fine. But regardless of what antenna I was running, whether it be the MA5B beam, which let me just say, with an MFJ tuner, I had gotten my SWR on all the bands that antenna could operate. I got all the SWR dead center of the band where I wanted to operate. My SWR was a 1-to-1. It was that on 10, 12, 15, 17, 20 meters. Perfect 1-to-1. The beam works absolutely flawless. The R9, it had a little fluctuation. There was some bands, I just could not get them down low enough. And without an amplifier, that antenna worked perfect. It did work good. At the end, by the time I had got done doing all of these modifications to it to make it be a good antenna. But I'm not getting into this R9 in the chat, because that's not the subject at hand. There's been a lot of emails, a lot of questions, a lot of comments, a lot of concerns, and asking and informing me of different things that they had experienced with the 1306 Ameritron amplifier. So what I wanted to do was just get right down to it, but I just wanted to kind of give you a backfill on what had been going on. Well, I'd gotten rid of the R9 because I really didn't have nowhere to put it. I was having problems with it, and then I got it straightened out, and once I got it straightened out, I went ahead and sold it so I could get an antenna, excuse me, that was a much better antenna for my space. So a very good friend of mine, W4DBX, who's also my Elmer from many years ago, he had taken and told me about the My Antenna from My Antenna. It was a 10, it does 10 through 75 meters. And I think I can't remember the exact model number of it right off the top of my head, but let me just say this. They're 10 through 75 meter antenna. Off-center, it's not an off-center dipole, it's a in-fed dipole. I mounted it on one end of the property, and I ran the wire up and took it at about the 65 foot of the feed line, or the wire. I put an insulator on there and got a standoff on my tower, so it makes the antenna come from here and it sort of goes up. Then across the rest of my property, it goes up and then starts to drop. So it's kind of like this now. with a little bit of an arch to it. Once I got this antenna up like that, started operating it, it operates on all the bands flawlessly, perfectly. Couldn't ask for anything better. So if you really want a really good antenna, my antenna makes an absolutely phenomenal. Good evening, Rob, and how are you doing? That and Rob can even tell you that um, my antenna from my antenna InFed works exceptionally well. He's in England. I'm in South Carolina in the United States. Rob just dropped in there, and he has heard me over the air on that InFed wire. And I'm telling you, folks, that's a really, really good resonant antenna for the bands. It does perform extremely well, with power or without. Me and Rob, matter of fact, have even made contacts with each other from South Carolina to England. And I think Rob had a 5.5 copy on me on both AM, FM, and sideband. We had a 5.5 copy on each other and carried on a conversation for, I don't know, what was it, 15, 20 minutes with that InFed. And it was only running pennies of power. When I cut the amplifier on, it was just like I blew his radio right off the table. But back to the topic, the 1306 kept giving me issues on 10 meters. And on 10 meters, I kept tuning different things to see which one I could get better. And I would even take and hook up a dummy load on that 1306 and run it up to whatever power level you want to get out of it. And the SWR on that dummy load is absolutely flatline perfect. That 1306 never cut off, not one time on no bands. I wrote all this stuff down. It was perfect SWR on 6 to 160. The daggum dummy load, it never phased, flinched, or did nothing. The amplifier put out full power, the full 1200 plus watts it would put out. I put a daggum antenna on it and had nothing else hooked up. Nothing else. The SWR on the antenna that I hooked up, I believe it had a 1.3 to 1 SWR. It would run for a little bit and then it would just click off. It could go to any other band. SWR could be a 1.3 to 5 and it wouldn't never cut off until it got, if it was in a range of about a 1.8 to a 2, the amp would kick off. I tested that theory to see if the amp safety features actually worked, and they do. But here's my point. I took and did away with all the grounding that I had inside the shack because I was grounded outside and grounding myself inside. I was overgrounding myself, so that was causing some problems. So I did away with the whole system inside the house, inside the shack. So anything in here that's grounded is grounded through the house ground. Everything outside at the tower, at each and every single antenna, it has its own separate ground. I would test with the different test equipment, and it wouldn't show nothing on the meters. Nothing. I would hook the amplifier up, pick an antenna. I'd pick my best tuned antenna. It'd work on all the bands, but then when I get to 10 meters, you'd key up for about 3 seconds, maybe 7 or 8 seconds at the most, it click off. Well, anything that I got that works on 10 meters, the SWR's not a perfect one-to-one. And I feel like that could possibly play a factor in this problem. I still don't like the fact that, I've bought an amplifier that is advertised that it works. And it says 6, 10, 12, 15, 17, 20, 30, 40, 80, and 160 meters. And its output power is 1.2 kilowatts on 160 through 6. Okay. With that being said, understand where I'm coming from, because I know some of y'all are going to say, yeah, I wish you wouldn't say that, because you just need to deal with it. But if I paid for it and I expected it to work on all those bands that it's advertised. Shouldn't it work on all those bands? Let me give you another scenario. If you go buy a truck or a boat and it's advertised to run 30 miles an hour, and you get it out on a lake and you ain't put none of your equipment in it, and it gets out there and it don't run 10 mile an hour, you just gonna keep running it and say that's just what you got, even though you paid $40,000-$50,000 for it? No, you're gonna go back and bitch, moan, and complain about it because it ain't right. That wasn't what was advertised. If you buy a brand new truck, you paid $70,000 for it, and it's supposed to be getting 35 miles to the gallon, and you get it and start driving it, and it's getting 6. Are you just gonna say, well, it drives good, it rides good, it's nice and quiet, it's got a good stereo, gas mileage, I don't care. I paid for it because I liked it. You're not getting what you paid for. Same thing with radio equipment. I think that it's not something that I'm doing in my shack or outside, because I have tested every single thing. I've went down to a single antenna, a single piece of coax. You're right, Rob. You're absolutely right. Rob just said something, and you know, it should be as advertised. It really should. I've gotten a lot of emails from a lot of different followers or subscribers, might I say, subscribers, and they all are asking me, well, I just ordered one and then came across your video. Now I feel like maybe I might have made a huge mistake. And I'm like, no, you didn't make a huge mistake. You just buying an amplifier that's not going to be very happy on 10 meters. I don't care if it does full legal power of what it's licensed to do. I just like to see, half of what the amp does. I mean, I did buy it to work on 6 through 160, and it works on all of them. Now, I've got some people, more than one person has told me, well, that thing's got a 11 meter block in it, and if you're on 10 meters, it's too close to 11. Well, I kind of want to halfway argue that fact. 10 meters and 11 meters, there's two different worlds. Plain and simple. If you're on your band that you're supposed to be on, and you're on the frequency that you're supposed to be on, a 10 meter block or 11 meter block, if it's blocked on 11 meters, which is fine, I'm happy with that. But you're talking about that many daggone megahertz of a difference. It'd be kind of like, well, if you block it on 10, is it going to not work on 12 now? I mean, let's get serious here. If you block it on 12, is it not going to work on 15? If you block it on 15, is it not going to work on 17? And then it ain't going to work on the other bands. There's a gray line there, and it needs to be addressed, plain and simple. But I stopped with all the grounding on the inside. I put really good LMR 400 flex coax on everything. I cut every single piece. I put the SWR analyzer on every single piece. I silver soldered every single piece, tested every piece, checked the ohms on every piece, got all my measurements to the wire. I don't know if there is a firmware system with that, because there's nothing but just amp. Now, the tuner has firmware. The FT101DX has firmware, and the 590 is firmware. There's updates that can be done on that, yes. Me, I'm just because I got every single piece is cut to the perfection. Every jumper cut to perfection. All the connections to perfection. Everything is triple checked and checked off again. Everything going outside. Once it goes through the wall, everything goes out, goes down. Everything outside is grounded separately, each piece. Everything at the tower. The tower has its own ground. The wire antenna has its own ground. The switches inside, they do not have a ground. Because what I figured out with test equipment, grounding everything in here and everything being grounded outside, stuff starts to have all kinds of, you know, I have not. And that's a good, trying it at Donald's is a pretty good idea. Because, you know, if it does it there, we definitely know. We definitely know there's something with it. It's not with anything that I, because I got everything in here working so perfect, absolutely flawless. But you can't overground stuff, people. And that was one of the things I wanted to talk about. If your house is grounded at the meter base, at the box, your house is aground already. So when you plug up your stuff here in your ham room, just word of thought. I got switches on everything. The switches allow me to just take and if you listen to that, I just broke the ground right there. Coax has got a break in it now. Okay. I do that to everything. As soon as I get ready to leave this shack, I cut everything. The main power switch breaker that I actually have in here in the ham shack, I cut that off. Then I unplug it. So I just completely broke the ground. So none of this stuff's even connected. Outside, feet away, I think it's a design fault on the 10 meters. I know you've got everything else perfect. I know you know I got everything perfect because me and you've been on video chat for months and months on end discussing these problems. Between me and you and Donald, we've all worked together and really worked on this stuff. And it's really been a learning experience, to be honest with you. Everything outside has its own individual ground. Each piece that's outside has its own ground, and none of those grounds are connected in any way. They're all separated. Everything is plenty of yardage apart. Like one antenna's over here, you got to go 50 yards before you get to the next antenna. Now that's 250 feet away. I'm you're looking at it the way I had it before. I had an antenna over here, one right here, and one right here. They were 68 feet between those three antennas. That was not helping me because at the very beginning, when I would transmit on one, I would see the meter right here, and it's not even got a coax in it, but the meter, these needles would just bobble a little bit. And then that's when I got to noticing things, and I noticed that, maybe I need to change this ground and revert back to the way it should be. And then I started separating everything outside, and once I separated everything, everything started working flawlessly. I started not having the touching the microphone and getting the hell knocked out of you, if you might say, or just putting your hand up here on the microphone and key it up, and you'd feel some kind of charge. I never feel that again. That amplifier, it can't be a design issue because nobody else is having that problem. From what I understand, it's only mine, and it's my problem. But still, it's advertised to work on 10 meters, and I feel like it should. That's just my honest opinion. Everybody else can say, well, you're just being, you know what? I paid for it to work on all of them. It should work on all of them. And it works on all of them flawlessly, except for 10 meters. Now, I'm going to try one more thing when weather starts permitting. I'm going to try to put up a separate antenna that's separate from all the other antennas, and it be just strictly for 10 meters. I'll try to get the SWR is absolutely as low as I can possibly get it. And then I'll try that. If it still kicks off even after that, then there is definitely a problem somewhere. And it's going to be in that amp. Before, when I was having all the issues, the one antenna out there it was up off the ground on a pole, and I had a ground wire that ran down, and it was about 10 foot long. I have thought about that. I would love to. actually contact the guy that actually built the Ameritron 1306, because I don't think he's but 2 or 3 hours from where I'm at, and just take it to him. Let him do a diagnostic test on it and just see if there just might be some little something that's just out of place. I mean, it cannot be much, because it works absolutely flawless everywhere else except for 10 meters. Um, who knows? I haven't let it be a real big issue, but it seems like ever since I made that video, and in the last 2 days, I have gotten email alerts from people making comments, people asking questions, people telling me what they done, people saying, well, I ordered me one and I hope I don't have the same problem, because if it don't work on 10, that's not doing as advertised. Everybody else feels like it should at least do what it's advertised to do, and it doesn't. I'm a ham radio operator for this many years. I've had to put a lot in the hobby. I've lost a lot in the hobby, and I've gotten back on my feet and got back into the hobby. And to put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears and a lot of time into it, you want it to work effortlessly, flawlessly, and be enjoyable. You go over here and you talk, and then somebody says, well, let's go down here, the band's open. Well, I go down there, and then, well, I can't hear you, the band's fading. Well, I can hear him. Well, he's running 300 watts. Well, there you go. You can't run it because it kicks off. And, grounding, I've found, has been one of the biggest issues. Don't ground inside the shack. It ain't worth it. The thing about it is when lightning or a static charge, EME, or any of that stuff happens outside your shack, and you got a ground wire coming in to your shack, hooking up to everything, when lightning gets, or static charge, or an EME hits outside your house in any area around surrounding your hand shack, guess what? It is going to ground. All right? It's going to ground. That's just all there is to it. And when it goes to ground, guess what? It comes in here. Well, you want to stop that. That's what helps the problems and solve the problems from the static discharges or any kind of EMEs or any kind of fault with something going wrong in the shack. If you ground it outside and ground it inside too, and then you got that little loop going on, that stuff's got somewhere to go. And it's going to come back and it's going to bite you. And you don't want that. I'll tell you this too while I'm thinking about it. Grounding and bonding for the amateur radio operator. Good practices in electrical safety, lightning protection for RF management by H. Ward Silver, N0AX. ARRL National Amateur Radio book. But anyway, this is second edition book. If you don't have this book, I highly suggest you get this book. Let me get the light. There we go. It's a good book. There's some things I tend to kind of second guess and think, I don't know if I want to do that. And then there's a lot of stuff in here that's actually good sense. And a lot of my stuff that my Elmer that's been helping me over the years, that gives me criticism and help. A lot of the stuff he tells me is basically the same knowledge that's coming out of this book. Because I can promise you this much, at least that much of the book, that much of the book is pretty spot on. It's a good book. If you haven't got it, I highly suggest you get it. Grounding and Bonding, second edition for the amateur radio operator. I got this at HRO. I don't even remember how much I paid for this thing. It was $25.95. But it's a good $25 that you spend. I can tell you that much. I hope that with everything topics that we've talked about and the things that we've covered, I hope that helps and answers your questions. It's like I said, I can run a dummy load and everything works flawless. It'll work. I don't care what band I go to. It'll run through that dummy load and not miss a lick. For some reason or another, when it goes to 10 meters, it just kicks the amp off, plain and simple. And, you know, I'm kind of aggravated with that. I don't get on 10 nowhere near as much as I used to. That looks like a good book. You will have a photocopy of that for me. Yeah, that I'll show you that again. This book is in HRO's book selection, HRO, ham radio outlet, and grounding and bonding for the radio amateur. Uh, $25. It'd probably be about 30 pounds, I guess. I don't know. I don't know if you can see that. That's the code on it. I don't know if that helps you or not. But, yep, it's a good book. It's got good tips and good topics. It talks about, you know, like things like, just for an example, it'll go into detail about, you know, well, most hams have always did it this way, but in theory, wouldn't it be better to do it this way? Well, some hams do it this way for over the years, but with newer equipment, see where I'm going with this? With newer equipment, better grounding, better different codes. We've found that, you know, not grounding the way you did in 1970 is always the smartest thing to do. Simple geometry will tell you that with the new boxes and the way a house is wired and the way everything's electrically ground, that it makes sense to just have it where you can switch it on, switch it off in here, and break the ground, break the power. And in that way, nothing's got any kind of tie back to it. Because this is way too much money sitting here to just go. And a direct hit, I know, ain't nobody got to come in there and make a comment and say, well, direct hits, you can't get away from that. Well, I know that. I'm just doing what it takes to get by and feel like I'm being as safe as I can with what I have at where it's at that point. Direct hit, you ain't got a chance. I don't give a dang hang who you are, but anyway. Everything outside needs its own separate ground. If you have a vertical antenna, you need to ground that antenna to the pole. And then you need to put a ground strap about that long and not have your ground rod no longer than it needs to be from that pole. So the antenna's grounded, and then the ground goes down to the pole's grounded down here. If you ground to the ground and then go 9 foot up a pole and then ground it to the antenna, well, you just created an extra wire there that will kind of act as a counterpoise, and you don't want a counterpoise in that, because that would actually throw the genetics of the whole makeup of the antenna, because then it's going to have that, and it'll change everything. Rob, I'm trying to see what you just commented there. So unless it's exactly 50 ohms match on 10 meters, it shuts down. Maybe even with a few ohms, that shuts out the fault components on 10 meters. Yeah, that could be possible too. Maybe the ohms are just not quite what they need to be and where they need to be. I'm gonna have to look into it more deeper. I don't really know what else to do to it. It's the reason why I kind of get on here and make the videos. You know, I'm hoping that, you know, somebody out there has had a problem other than me. But, you know, but again, it works everywhere else. So I can't totally complain. I would like to try to figure that out. I would like to know why it doesn't do what it's supposed to do at that one point. And, you know, maybe we'll get it figured out one day. You know, my antenna SWRs are at their absolute lowest that they can be. My coax is a matched length, right down to the jumper coming in here and the jumper going through the amp and back to the switch to the radio. Every inch of every foot of every amount of footage that I have is cut right to the money. Right to the dang money. It don't matter what meter I put in here. Just say hypothetically, I don't care if I'm on 17 meters, if I'm on 20 meters, 75 meters, whatever. No matter where I get on the bands, no matter how much power I'm running, it does not matter. That meter up there, if I'm checking and testing around this shack to see if I got any stray RF, there is absolutely none. Absolutely none. Now, yeah, well, I would blame Biden too. He's a, hey, Lordy. I appreciate, Rob, you being in here and all of everybody else. I think that I have answered pretty much just about every single question that I could answer from the emails that I've been getting from all the comments on those videos. Just don't ground yourself to death. You know, get the book, read the book. That book right there, grounding and bonding. You can get this from HRO, Ham Radio Deluxe. Ham Radio Deluxe, Ham Radio Outlet. I'm sorry. It'll kind of get you squared away and straightened out a whole lot. I think that not having everything in here grounded to death and taking all of these ground straps that I had run outside, hooked to the ground rods that was outside, that was also hooked to the antennas outside, doing away with all that made a huge difference. You just really got to get rid of all that trash because you can overground one. And, you know, I'm thinking with this amplifier, I really think there is it could possibly be like a coil or a tuning pod. And just by chance, let's just say that it's tweaked to this point to where if you get so close to 11 meters, it just kicks off the amp. I think it needs to be maybe adjusted a little bit so it's not so finicky. It faults out just about absolutely every single time I'd go to 10 meters. The MA5B, I'll give you an example. MA5B on 28450 or 460. My SWR without a tuner, just off the radio. Everything's still in line. My SWR is an actual 1.1 with an analyzer at the beam. It's a flat one. All of the other bands that MA5B operates on, every single band, 1.1, 1.2, 1.1, 1.1. They're all as flat as they can be. Now I can take and operate the amplifier on every single band. I can go to 10, shuts off immediately. I don't give a dang if I'm running 5 watts or if I'm running 100 watts. It does not matter. The second I key up, I mean, you don't even get a word out of your mouth real good, and it just clicks off. If I go to a vertical that has, I think, a 1.3 SWR. All right, brother. Well, Rob, I appreciate you coming in here, M0TFO. I hope you have a wonderful night, and I'm going to head back to work in the morning and go right back at it. This weekend was not really a good weekend to do anything outdoors. It's been raining every day. I'm just trying to do some kind of video on here and try to get everybody to see my channel and hopefully get more subscribers, more likes, more comments like I've been getting. I'm happy for the comments. And hopefully we can get down to the bottom of it. But yeah, we're going to try to do what we can with what we got. So far, everything's been working really good. So with that, you know, it's kind of like, we just got that little old quirk in there, and I just want to get rid of it. But and it's like I said, it could be something as simple as just a little wire bent, maybe a coil moved, maybe just tuning a little tuning pot or something in it. It's got to be something relatively simple. Merry Christmas to you, Rob, and Halen, and everybody at the house. Appreciate you being in here. But we are going to say 73s and hope everyone has a wonderful rest of your Christmas weekend. And hope everybody has a good night. And I really don't know what else to say about that thing over there, except that it works everywhere else but that. And I'd like to get down to the bottom of why. And taking it and letting someone else test it to see if just possibly it does it there as well, Rob, I think was a great idea. But anyway, I'll say 73s. Hey, if you're not subscribed to my channel, be sure to do that. And give us a thumbs up, hit the notification buttons. We're going to be doing more content. I appreciate everybody's questions and your input. Appreciate each and every one of you. And I hope y'all continue to support and help me out and ask me questions. I'll try to give you a good, honest answer best I can. It is just a hobby, and I've got years of learning the hobby and don't mind helping anyone any way I can with it. So y'all have a good day. And 73s from Outdoors with KG4MK.